Welcome back, guys. We were talking about Thanksgiving in Westeros, so I hope you brought your appetite.
You're tuning into the destination for TV superfan discussion, AfterBuzz TV. And now, let the buzz begin.
Welcome back, guys. Welcome. I am one of the Game of Thrones hosts, Amber Plaster. You guys can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Amber Plaster. We're doing a weekly coverage of Game of Thrones while we are in the off season here called Game of Thrones Weekly. So I so appreciate you guys being here. And we have moved shows. So if you guys are not very familiar with us on iTunes or on AfterBuzz's TV's little YouTube streaming channel, which you can watch live with me and see you. I can see you in the chat, or you can watch on the replay. We've moved over to doing kind of genre-specific channels. So now all the Game of Thrones content is going to live on AfterBuzz TV, Sci-Fi, Fantasy, and Superhero channel. And if you're confused as to where to find that, all you got to do is go to youtube.com/AfterBuzzTV, and you can see all of the main different genres on the right-hand side, and just click on it. And that's where we'll live. So thank you so much for joining us here today, guys. I feel like it's been a while. Since I've been I actually really enjoyed last week's discussion of this Sir Davos. Wow. Hello. That Dave Child and Yael Teagle hosted on Game of Thrones Weekly. They did the Myers-Briggs personality test for Game of Thrones. So if you guys haven't heard that podcast, make sure to go back and listen to it because it is hilarious. This week, it is Sunday, November 12th, if you guys are not listening live to this, and I wanted to cover an upcoming holiday that we have here in the States called Thanksgiving. It's about family, it's about being thankful, and it's about food, and there's a lot of family, and there's a lot of food, not a lot of thankfulness in Game of Thrones, but that's fine. It's just fine. And so I kind of wanted to touch on that today. So today's subject for the podcast is going to be called Thanksgiving in Westeros. I hope you guys have some snacks, because as I was researching everything that I wanted to talk about in this episode, I kept getting hungry. So I apologize ahead of time if I am going to make you hungry for that. First of all, I wanted to talk about what Thanksgiving would kind of be like in each kingdom in Westeros. I really love the idea of just seeing all the Starks sitting down around a dinner table and all of the Martells. I can't even picture the Martells sitting down together as sand snakes and not just killing each other. But I like the imagery, and I want to try to figure out what the Thanksgiving episode of each one of those houses would look like. And it just really amused me, so I'm going to go over that now. And then I wanted to talk a little bit about the foods that we've come to know and love that have been kind of not created by George R.R. Martin, but if you guys read the books, you know how much time George R.R. Martin spent describing the foods in Game of Thrones. For each character, we have Sansa's lemon cakes, to each city kind of had their own specific need or smell or vibe of the food. He really took his time not just with the characters of the show, but also with the food and the culinary traditions of each region of the show, which is why the show is so expansive, and we can talk about it every week, even when it's not on the air. Can you believe it? We're never going to be done. It's too much. It's really too much. Okay, let's dive into it. So, if Thanksgiving existed in Westeros, I feel like Winterfell would definitely be the most heartwarming. I mean, it would still be bittersweet because there's a lot of family members dead at this point. Obviously, the feast would be held in the main dining hall of Winterfell. It would be snowing outside, so they couldn't hold it in a courtyard or anything, which is kind of sad because I feel like they would want to be under the weirwood tree. But, the fact that they're even eating or together would be something to be thankful for, because Starks are very, very rarely together. I think all of the Night's Watch and the Wildlings would probably be invited in this special episode of Thanksgiving. In my mind, Tormund would definitely do his best to cheer everyone up, and I think that he would definitely be the life of the party. I think that it would be kind of bittersweet because, obviously so many of the dire wolves. Also, maybe Ghost would be there. Let's just say Ghost would be there because we want him to be there. I know that they ran out of budget to bring Ghost back for the last season, but he's still technically alive. And I'm thankful for that. So let's pretend that Ghost is there as well. I think that John would just mostly be completely silent because he's actually not super great socially. He's socially awkward, great in battle, super trustworthy, super handsome, all the great things. Not a social guy. Tormund would be needed to kind of save the day. And if Brienne of Tarth was nearby, she would probably be fighting off his advances after a few cups of mead, I think. I think that's what Winterfell would look like in Thanksgiving. Going over to the east side, the west side, the Greyjoy Thanksgiving episode would be a little bit more action-packed, I think. If Theon and Yara returned home to the Iron Islands for, let's say, a dinner hosted by their uncle Euron, the feast would definitely be held on Euron's ship. Silence is the name of his ship because he's so creepy. And Euron just, he rules his own world. He is in charge of everything, so of course it would be on his ship. I don't think Yara would like that too much. Don't think Yara would have a choice. But I think that's what would happen. I think that Euron would make way too many eunuch jokes and way too many people uncomfortable. And I think that the dinner would very quickly turn into a bloodbath. And I think that everyone would die. I think the holiday episode of Thanksgiving at the Greyjoys would end in everyone dying. 100% would bet money on it. But you know that Theon would survive somehow because we can't kill him. How does that guy keep on living? He's like, his brain has been through so much that he's not even human anymore, and yet he still lives. It's impressive. I actually really like what the actor's doing with him on the show because, let me tell you, when it came to Theon's chapters in the books, I skipped right past them because they were very boring. And the actor on the show was pretty good. If there was a Targaryen Thanksgiving, I mean, there isn't much of a family, but I guess family is who you choose to be your family, right? You've heard of Friendsgiving. Have you guys ever done that, Friendsgiving? Where if you're not nearby your family, you get together with friends and do the whole turkey and mashed potatoes and pumpkin pie thing. I think that would kind of be the situation with the Targaryens. I mean, I guess technically Jon is Dany's nephew, so that could work. But he wouldn't leave Winterfell. So let's just pretend that episode is separate from the Targaryen one. I think that it would be interesting if Dany invited like the entire Dothraki Khalasar, because that was the closest thing that she had to a family. She kind of grew up with wolves or horses, or yeah, you know what I mean. A wild pack of crazy Dothraki. That was kind of where she learned to come into her own. So I kind of view that more of her family than her actual Targaryen brother, who was terrible to her in the first book and in the first season. So if we know that a Dothraki wedding is nothing without at least 3 deaths, then the Thanksgiving episode of the Targaryen dinner would have at least 10 deaths in it if the Dothraki was there. It would be a total rager, and everyone would be drunk, and a lot of people would get impregnated in that episode. A lot of people. I don't take it back. I know it would happen. I think that Jorah might even make an appearance because you need something heartfelt to happen on the Thanksgiving episode. It's not really a Thanksgiving because it's not really a family, but it's definitely going to be the most exciting Thanksgiving going on for sure in all of Westeros, because you have dragons probably cooking up meat. Would like to see that, come to think of it. And you also have Dothraki killing and also probably impregnating people at the dinner table. Think on it. And then be thankful for how chill your Thanksgiving is going to be in comparison to the Targaryen Thanksgiving. So I think if there was an Aaron Thanksgiving, R.I.P. John Aaron. It would not be very eventful. It would be pretty sad. I think it would be like a microwave TV dinner and just Rob and Aaron complaining a lot. That would pretty much be it for there and Thanksgiving. I'm glad that we didn't spend a lot of time there in the TV show because I really did not like that storyline. And I was really sad that Catelyn's sister was such a wet blanket. I did not like her very much. I think the Lannister Thanksgiving would definitely be the most visually pleasing because they would definitely hold the feast in the Great Hall in the Red Keep. It's definitely by far the most extravagant dinner. Everyone's going to be dressed to the nines. Everyone's going to be drinking wine, especially Cersei. And Jaime and Cersei sit on opposite sides of the table, probably not speaking to one another until they fight or hook up again. That's also likely. I think that after a few courses, Tyrion would like have to show up and ruin the show because he can't not be with his family. His family is terrible to him every single episode, and yet he needs to be with his family, shows up anyway, kind of sort of charms his way back into Jaime's heart. I think this is what would happen, and I think that he would just make fun of Cersei the entire time, and I think she would get really mad, and I think it would be a pretty good dinner for Tyrion. I think he'd enjoy it. And I think that he would enjoy dressing up, and I think that he would enjoy all of the rashers of bacon that he could handle, because that was his favorite food in the books, and it always made me very hungry when I read about it. I see you guys, some of you guys are joining me in the live chat for the AfterBuzz TV YouTube channel. Thank you guys. Yes, it is a dangerous game of impregnating when most people in the family are related, as it would be. But so Dany and Jon are not really having a problem with that, just as most Targaryens don't really have a problem with that, which is why it's also fitting that the Dothraki would probably have a little bit of incest as well. It's all in the family. It's all in the imaginary family that is the Targaryen / Dothraki Thanksgiving. And I don't take it back because I think it would happen. Okay? They would, Cersei and Jaime would make everyone be there under their will. That sounds about right. That's true. And Casey in the chat brought up a good point. Cersei is all about family. So you're right. It would probably be a lovely dinner for at least a few minutes before things got real. That's what I think. I want to talk about some of the things that, speaking of being thankful for Thanksgiving, I don't know what you guys' plans are for Thanksgiving. If you have anything exciting, please tweet them to me. I will probably just be doing the normal thing, which is driving over to family's house and having the turkey and mashed potatoes and pumpkin pie. Not sweet potato pie, because sweet potato pie is disgusting. Everyone knows that. Pumpkin pie is the best. We'll be doing that. But there are a few things that I'm thankful for, specifically in Game of Thrones, having had this last season. One, my girl's still alive. Arya still kicking it, still kicking ass. 2, Sansa turned out to be cool and also finally got back at Littlefinger. I was having every bit of that revenge and I loved it. And 3, Dany and Jon get together. Listen, I know it's scandalous. I know it's a nephew and aunt love situation. I don't even know if it's love. Maybe it's just lust. Listen, I'm here for it. I'm clocked in for it. I love it. And I'm not going to be sorry about it because they didn't grow up together and they didn't know. And as far as I know, they're completely different lineages and they look nothing alike. So I'm thankful for it and I like it. Those are my 3 thankful things for Game of Thrones. Would also be interested to hear what you're thankful for in the last episode of Game of Thrones. I know a lot of you guys were happy to see a lot more dragon action. I personally can't talk about the dragons without getting upset about Viserion getting taken by the Night King, who I call Kevin, because he's annoying and he deserves an annoying name. So the Night King's name is Kevin, just so that we're all on the same board. With that, don't like him. Don't like how he planned that spear into that dragon. Don't like his smugness. Don't like anything about that Night King. Not thankful for him. Don't like him. Could do without him. All right. Oh, I see a few people in the chat They like and also hate Sansa. That is one of the last things I talked about on Game of Thrones Weekly is Sansa or nah. We talked about how a lot of people don't like her. And I actually kind of came back around to liking her. So I would say I'm thankful for Sansa continuing to be loyal to the Starks when we all kind of were doubting her for a second. We all kind of were doubting her loyalty to the Starks and especially to her sister Arya. And that was a little scary. A little bit of a scary time. Yep. Oh, okay. We have a Cersei fan in the chat saying they're thankful to see Cersei on the throne. I don't think that that's going to last for very long. I think she's dealing with a lot of mental damage. And I think that, yeah, I don't think she's going to hold that for very long, but I'm loving the all black outfits she's rocking this season. She looks very regal. She looks very queenly, and I'm into it. I'm not saying I don't like Cersei. I'm just saying I don't think it's going to last very long. You know? Yeah, a lot of people do think that Sansa is a spoiled brat. That is the problem. But I'm not going to get into it. Go listen to the episode. You'll know my defense for Sansa, and I think that it makes sense. I wanted to go over a little bit about the foods created for Thanksgiving because I can't talk about Thanksgiving without just getting excited about food. I think the thing that sticks out to me the most is each character's specific favorite food. I mean, I'm going to pull out little phrases here that maybe some of you who've read the books will remember and be like, oh man, that sounds so good. And then I'm actually going to show you guys where you can make the recipes for this. You can make a Game of Thrones recipes for your Thanksgiving dinner. You're welcome. I got you. So at the Purple Wedding, Joffrey's Last Supper was definitely a pretty crazy one. It consisted of honey gingered partridge, roast herons, and cheese and onion pies. For some reason, a cheese and onion pie sounds so good. It sounds like a quiche. They also had trout cooked in a crust of crushed almonds. They also had crabs boiled in a fiery Eastern spice. They also had slivers of swan. Didn't know that you could eat swan. Sounds beautiful and also terrible at the same time, so it's perfect that it was for Joffrey. Slivers of swan poached in a sauce of saffron and peaches. Dang. Not to mention the pigeon pie that Joffrey chooses to slice himself using the executioner's sword. The pie was served with a spoon of lemon cream. But by then Joffrey was dead, so he didn't get to that part. It's fine. Yeah, that all sounds really good. Man, I kind of want to know what a sauce of saffron and peaches is about. I don't really cook, guys, so I'll never know. But I want to know if somebody wants to make that for me. There was a lot of savory pies happening in the north. It's cold there. There was a lot of comfort foods, and Ramsay Bolton's wedding feast in the north in Winterfell, which was kind of gross. Didn't like watching it, but it was interesting because it's unlike all of the weddings and feasts in the south in that it is gigantic. They need a lot of food. It's cold. They need to fill themselves up. So the feast for Ramsay Bolton's wedding was described as wide across as wagon wheels, their flaky crust stuffed to bursting with carrots, onions, turnips, parsnips, mushrooms, and chunks of seasoned pork swimming in a savory brown gravy. Except most readers believe that it's not pork, but the flesh of Walder Frey's relatives that he's feeding to the Freys and the Boltons alike. But, you know, the Manderly does tell them at one point, it's the best pie you've ever tasted. Wash it down with arbor gold and savor every bite. I know I shall. And listen, I wouldn't be surprised if it was Frey's relatives. First of all, there's a lot of Freys. Second of all, there's a lot of revenge happening. Also, do you think people taste like pork? Because if that's what it's supposed to double for, that's kind of messed up. The Red Wedding. Oh my goodness, we're going through all the weddings. I guess because they're feasts and it's similar to Thanksgiving. That makes sense. The infamous Red Wedding, which is the point where I personally just closed the book and threw it into the ocean. If you're thinking about reading the books, maybe just skip over that part because you're going to want to cry. The infamous Red Wedding featured a dinner menu of a thin leek soup, followed by a salad of green beans, onions, beets, river pike poached in an almond milk, mounds of mashed turnips that were cold before they reached the table, ooh, jellied calf's brains, and a leche of stringy beef. And Catelyn observed that it's a four-pair to set before a king, but then again, Frey's foul taste in food shouldn't really be her chief concern. So, yeah, I mean, I didn't actually remember the food in this feast being that disgusting. But it makes sense because he really wasn't there to please anyone. He was there to murder. He was there to murder babies. He was there to murder women. He was there to murder everyone. So it makes sense that he wasn't concerned about the food. I think the first supper was pretty descriptive. It was pretty good in Fire and Ice. In the 5th chapter of Game of Thrones, Jon Snow gets drunk on sweet, fruity summer wine and feeds a honeyed chicken to his newly acquired direwolf, Ghost. Aw, Ghost puppy. All while the lords and ladies of House Stark, Baratheon, Lannister imbibe at the more prestigious end of the hall. What the scene lacks in extraordinarily detailed descriptions of food, it more than makes up for in history, as Jon talks about Jaime and Tyrion for the very first time, and they kind of get to know each other. It's a rare occasion where we get to see the Starks and the Lannister breaking bread with one another without killing each other. But anytime, I did note in the book that anytime the Lannisters sat down to eat, Tyrion always had rashers of bacon. And that made me really happy because bacon is a happy food and Tyrion's a happy guy. And it made sense for me and I love it. I love that the characters line up with the foods. Like Sansa's favorite treat was her lemon cakes. Like, of course, her favorite food is a dessert because she's a little princess. It makes sense. I just love it. Anyway, let's see what's happening over here in the chat with you guys. Some of you guys are saying I would not want to eat the horses like the Dothraki do. Listen, I would try horse, but I don't think it would taste good. I don't know what I would think it would taste like. It would probably taste like bad beef with like no fat. No human's meat would be way lean. Pork is fattier because it's not really the muscle part that you eat. That's true. Don't know what humans taste like. Probably will never find out. Honey chickens sounds delicious. Yes, it does. And I love the idea that he has like the sweetest, most tender chicken when he's feeding it to his puppy. It's so fitting. I want to try the honey chicken and the bacon. Well, luckily you can just have regular bacon. It's just a rasher of bacon is just thick cut bacon from the butcher. That's it. Doesn't have anything else fancy on it. Because bacon doesn't need anything because it's delicious. That's why. So if you guys want to see some of these recipes and make them, or if nothing else, just kind of double check the recipes and relive them through your favorite characters and be more informed on why different characters in Westeros ate them. There is actually a cookbook. It is the unofficial Game of Thrones cookbook, and it is called From Direwolf Ale to Arosh Stew, more than 150 recipes from Westeros and beyond. It's written by Alan Kistler, who I had the privilege of meeting a few Comic-Cons ago. And this book is in depth, you guys. And it lets you eat like a Lannister if you want to. It lets you drink like a Stark if you want to. And it definitely gives you options to source all of the materials that you can to be as specific as possible to the actual recipe, which is really cool. So I just wanted to like read it because I think it's interesting. But if you guys actually like to cook, you can actually cook these recipes. You can get it on Amazon and like anywhere that books are sold. But yeah, so it's called The Unofficial Game of Thrones Cookbook by Alan Kistler. And I will link to that up on the YouTube page if you guys are looking for it. It has 5 stars on Amazon, and it's been up here for a few years because it came out when the first season came out, I believe. Yeah, it's quite an ambitious book. I can't believe somebody actually took the time to put all of these recipes together. Kind of crazy. Yeah, man. I kind of want to make something from Game of Thrones for Thanksgiving now, but I'm not going to because I'm not going to cook. And I do like to bake, but making a pumpkin pie isn't really necessarily Game of Thrones related, and I can't not have pumpkin pie. So what am I supposed to do? What am I supposed to do, guys? Maybe I can order it somewhere? There's no way to know. The chat is saying there's a lot of alcohol products named after Game of Thrones stuff now. I can see that because there's a lot of drinking in Game of Thrones. There's mead, there's wine, there's that like mead-like stuff that I don't want to say swill, but it's like really low-end stuff that that the armies and especially Arya sees when she's much younger, when she's traveling on the King's Road, that they drink. There's a lot of alcohol that kind of keeps people warm and in trouble in Game of Thrones, so I can definitely see that. If the characters match their favorite food, then why does the Hound like chicken instead of play on his character? Yeah, you don't know that the Hound isn't afraid of fire? He's a scaredy cat. Come on now. I know a lot of people like the Hound. I personally remember him threatening to rape Sansa in the books, so still not a fan of the Hound, but I know most people are. Cookies for you. Oh, you enjoy cookies on Thanksgiving? I don't really mess with cookies. Listen, I don't really mess with cookies. I don't really mess with brownies unless they're fresh out of the oven. But for Thanksgiving, I will hit up a pie, and I'm not afraid to hit up these recipes. So if you guys want to check out the unofficial Game of Thrones cookbook by Alan Kistler, you can just thumb through it and see if you're interested in it. I thought that was fascinating. Anyway, we should probably get into some news and gossip for Game of Thrones. I feel like there's always something happening with this cast. This cast is gigantic. Sorry, I moved away from the mic here. The cast is gigantic, and there's always something happening because these actors are either getting married, or they're filming something, or they're moving, or in this case, maybe coming back to the show. Are we able to put up on the screen an image of Jason Momoa's Instagram? Because pretty sure. Yeah, can we throw it up there? Excellent. Shout out to our AfterBuzz TV engineer for putting that up on the screen for me. I'm pretty sure that Jason Momoa just teased a possible return of Game of Thrones. The internet is going crazy over this as of 2 days ago. Even though Jason Momoa's Khal Drogo died at the end of the first season of Game of Thrones, the character made a surprise cameo appearance in season 2 when he popped up in Dany's vision in the House of the Undying, which was pretty cool. We got to see them with the baby. And with the show about to start filming the final 6 episodes of the series, I'm thinking maybe he can appear in season 8, possibly. I mean, Jason Momoa recently took to Instagram to post a snap of himself with the Game of Thrones star Christopher Hivju, who plays Tormund, Giantsbane, on the HBO series, while Momoa stopped in Belfast, where the cast was gathered for a table read before filming starts. So, yes, Jason Momoa was with the entire Game of Thrones cast right before they started filming at their filming location. And he got to have a drink with Tormund. This is so cute. Yeah, so if you guys are able to watch it on the YouTube channel on the replay, for those of you listening on the podcast, it is some real cute pictures of a real jolly looking Tormund with his eyes looking crazy, and Jason Momoa wearing a ridiculous hat, as well as a few others of the whole crew drinking and sticking their tongues out and generally looking like crazy British people. That's what they do. Momoa did say that he was there for 24 hours, where he met several of his Thrones cast members, and it is possible that the Aquaman actor was just there for a visit. But they do that a lot to us to throw us off the scent, to confuse us. And it would be very easy for them to throw in another flashback or dream sequence. And you know what? I know a lot of people are saying that's scraping the bottom of the barrel of creativity for the show, but I really like his character, and I wouldn't be ashamed to see a flashback of him. I wouldn't. I would have it. I would love it. I would be pleased. I don't know how you guys feel about that. Tweet me and let me know. I'm not done seeing his character. I know he's super dead. Can't we have nice things? Can't we? Anyway. Oh, man, you guys. I do. I like that he's sticking out his tongue, too. Oh, man. Everybody loves Jason. I mean, I really hope this new movie that he's in is good, but, you know, Wonder Woman's in it, so at least we know part of it will be good. We'll see. Fingers crossed. Fingers crossed, guys. I hope there's a good reason they killed him off the show, other than the fact that that's in the story, but that actor is really, really good. Well, thanks for sticking it out with me today, guys. I'm excited to see what recipes you guys cook up for Thanksgiving. I personally might be attempting a dessert that's Game of Thrones themed. If I do, I'll put it up on my Instagram. And if you guys are here next week for Game of Thrones Weekly, make sure to say hi to my fellow hosts. Should be Ryan Malaiti next week. And you guys can keep the conversation going with me on Twitter and Instagram. Please tweet me pictures of your weird foods that you make. Would be interested, because I can't cook. All right, guys. Thank you so much for hanging out with me, and I will see you next time.
From executive producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire AfterBuzz TV staff, we would like to thank you for listening to the AfterBuzz TV network. To watch or listen to other after shows and post comments or questions, be sure to visit AfterBuzzTV.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of AfterBuzz TV.
Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.